New season, new weapons, so is there a new meta? There's some new players in this video that may or may not stay around, and you'll see why as we break everything down, but today I wanted to run down the best 10 weapons you should be using within Warzone for Season 6. If you're a rusher, sniper, rifle player, we've got something for you. So as we go along, let me know your thoughts down below. Are you looking to use any of these weapons if you haven't already? Do any of these placements surprise you? And if there is something you would like to add to the list, feel free to drop it in the comments below. As well, if you are new to the channel, do be sure to hit the subscribe button as we round into a lot of awesome COD related stuff here in the next coming weeks, with Season 6 content to the Cold War beta starting next week. Make sure you're here for all of it. Also, a big thank you and shout out to Jacob, Alan, Zach, and Tex for using creator code Espresso to support the channel a little further. If you end up using my code in the shop, tweet me a picture. I'd love to shout some of you out. Let's talk about weapons. First things first, let's talk about the new weapons. Do either of these break the top 10? Well, I think the biggest determinant is how you use them, really. For the AS Val, there are definitely some situational advantages, but overall, I wouldn't say the AS Val breaks into the top 10. The only time that I'd place it there and that I'd really want to use it is in those cases where I know a player is, say, watching an entry like a staircase where there's no other way up. Because in that case, this thing's incredibly broken. With the SPP rounds, the 10-shot mag semi-auto modification, that's meant to increase bullet penetration, but it's a little broken. It's almost as if walls don't affect damage drop-off whatsoever. So if you have a snapshot grenade comboed with this thing with the SPP rounds, you can take out anyone almost anywhere. Now this is almost certainly a bug, and I would imagine this gets fixed out in the relatively near future, but it does have limited applications of practical use in which it is very good. But outside of that, the AS Val is solid for MP, but one of the big hindrances is that of the 30-round mag. We've talked about how ammo is king in Warzone with magazine size, especially with armor values increasing the amounts of shots to kill, the fact that you're gonna have many encounters where you're likely not gonna be just fighting one person. So having at max 30 rounds to work with, where that's the base default for some other rifles, it's just a big hindrance for the majority of gameplay if you ask me. So the AS Val is definitely solid for MP, but for Warzone, I don't think that I'd really say it's the move. Now the SPR 208 on the other hand, that one right now I can absolutely get behind. But this again comes down to potentially being bugged, and in a few weeks time it may drop off pretty hard. Right now, this thing is a powerhouse of a sniper rifle, and for that reason, it's going to be the first weapon we talk about here that I think breaks into the top 10 of usable weapons. Like we said, it's a powerhouse of a sniper rifle, and many thought this was due in part to the fast bullet velocity of the weapon, making it kind of a Kar 98K with an HDR hybrid, with that marksman-style ADS properties, but the damage potential and the bullet velocity of the HDR. But that's only the perception of it. It's actually much better than that right now. Right now, the Lapua and the Norma rounds seem to be bugged where it doesn't make the bullet velocity better in terms of relative speed, but instead it makes it just as near hit scan as you can get. And for those unfamiliar with the term, hit scan is when you point and shoot and contact is made. There is no travel time. It's just an instant bang and dead. Now that happens to the point of 415 meters according to True Game Data's testing, which means that for mid to semi-long range, this is without a doubt the best sniper in the game right now, especially with those one-shot down potentials. For this, I end up running it overkill with another weapon of some kind, normally for my snipes, especially if I'm running a marksman rifle with a sniper scope. I like to run an SMG, cover all the bounds of close, medium, and long range in that regard, so I'd happily run the SPR 208 with something like the MP7 or the MP5. But that brings me to gun number 2, and this is now in no particular order, but the MP7 has been a weapon that's been feeling different for me since Season 6 began. It's likely nothing, but it's definitely been a lot of fun to use. I've been using a lot of the MP5, so maybe just breaking away has kind of changed the perception of it, but the MP7 overall is still a great weapon that you can use here and breaks this top 10 because of 1, the fire rate, 2, the damage potential up close you do have, yes, and 3, the fact that there is little to no recoil if you kit it out properly. That means that even if you do challenge a mid-range gunfight, while you might be a little bit up against the odds in terms of damage potential and damage per shot that you end up having for values of other weapons like a rifle, your enemies might be missing shots here with the recoil patterns, but you'll be straight as an arrow. For the MP7, I usually run the monolithic suppressor, the FSS recon barrel, the tac laser, the Merc foregrip, and the 60-round mag. Straight as an arrow, fast ADS, pack and a punch. Another weapon that's a straight shooter is that of the Grau, and this one has been, of course, in the top 5 probably since it was introduced, and really shouldn't be any surprise that it is still here with us. Though there have been other weapons that have come and gone in the meta of Modern Warfare and Warzone, this is also one that's just been, whether at the front of the stage or just off to the side, one that has been at least in the picture here since its introduction. But the Growl, even though going through a couple of nerfs here, bringing it down from a long-range beam machine, it's still incredibly fantastic, especially for a rifle of its stature. For the Growl, even though it's incredibly easy to manage in terms of its recoil, I still play around with some recoil attachments just to make it an absolute laser pointer of a weapon. For this, I end up running the monolithic suppressor, the Tempest 26.4 Archangel barrel, the Commando foregrip, the 60-round magazine, and the Cronin Sniper Elite. I used to run the VLK here for this, but even though it offers some undisclosed recoil mitigation, I'm okay with the iron sights, and therefore I can kind of kit out the weapon elsewhere, and again, that recoil control we make up for in other locations as well. Again, that one really shouldn't be too much of a surprise here for this one. Another one, though, that is a lesser used, but kind of grew to some prominence within the last season, and a little bit actually in Season 4 as well, before being overtaken by the Bruin meta, was that of the Kilo 141. Now, the Kilo is, again, another straight shooter. At a distance, it's really solid if you can control the recoil, and of course, even up close, it does offer a little bit because of that fire rate. My own personal build of the Kilo is a little bit different than what you may actually see in terms of some more meta play. I like to kit mine out for a little bit faster ADS speed. Therefore, I run the monolithic suppressor, the Singard Arms 19.8-inch Prowler barrel, the TAC laser, the VLK 3x optic for a little bit of that recoil mitigation, plus also a pinpoint precise sight, and the 60-round mags. You also will see a lot of people use the Commando foregrip under barrel, which is totally fine and is honestly a really solid choice, but it's just one of those things that I've kind of played around with both, and for whatever reason, as of recently, I just took off the Commando. Even though the aim will bounce a little bit more at range, it's still relatively easy to control, and you also have a little bit more in terms of that ADS speed to work with. So definitely something that's a trade-off that you can decide upon how you feel with it in game, but one weapon that I would definitely say is still in the top 10. Taking a quick break from some of the rifle play here at this one, let's talk a little bit about one of my favorites that has been a staple go-to all the time here for me, and that's still the MP5. While I've been playing a little bit with the MP7 as of Season 6's beginning here, the MP5 is still one of those weapons that I can absolutely just default to for some close quarters and medium range gunplay. Now, if I'm clearing a room, obviously I'll want something like an R90, which we'll talk about in just a second, but for those situations where you're not going into close corridors and hallways, the MP5 has you covered in basically any other situation. Again, close to mid-range, you can win those gunfights with. For this, of course, we've talked about this before. For this, I end up running the monolithic integral suppressor, the Merc foregrip, the 45-round magazine, the stippled grip tape, and the sleight of hand weapon perk. Now, perhaps I think the biggest part here of this is the Merc foregrip, adding in that recoil control and also hip fire accuracy. You're shooting straight as an arrow once again here at this. The recoil pattern, once you toss this on, is incredibly easy to manage, so pop on that 45-round mag, that stippled grip tape for the added ADS speed, and you got a weapon that keeps you off the radar, shoots straight, and can take multiple gunfights in one magazine. One weapon that was really growing on me by the end of Season 5 and a little bit here still within Season 6 is another rifle, but one that is a little underutilized compared to, say, the Growl, the Kilo. This one is the CR56 AMAX, and this is one that is kind of on the outer edges if you were to put it on, say, a scale for each of the weapons within the categories. It's not quite to the point where it's the Odin, where it's very drastic differences, very high damage per shot, super high recoil to mitigate that, but it is a little bit more out there than, say, the all-around use weapons like the Growl or like the M4. The CR56 AMAX has a little bit more kick, so therefore it is a little harder to control. But as a trade-off, again, you have a little bit higher of a DPS. You have a little bit more damage potential with each of those shots you take. So if you can control that recoil, you can hit your headshots, you're down on players left, right, and center. For that reasoning, I'd say it's a little bit more harder of a weapon to control in terms of the rifle category and what you do with it, but once you master it, it's phenomenal. For this, I end up running the monolithic suppressor, the XRK Zodiac barrel for a little bit more added damage range and potential, the VLK 3x optic for a little bit of recoil mitigation, plus again that pinpoint precision, the Merc foregrip for hipfire and recoil mitigation, and the 45-round magazine because ammo is key in most cases here with this. I want to be able to take one or two gunfights with different players if need be, and so having those extra rounds is crucial, but definitely one that can absolutely shred through your enemies, so definitely put this one in the top 10. Now, going from kind of an extreme here with this back down to a weapon that I think is probably on the outside of the top 10 here, right at the edge perhaps, is the M4A1. The weapon that was king for so long within Modern Warfare and within Warzone even at the very beginning is still on the inside, but he's getting a little close to the edge there. He's on the fringe, but the M4A1, again, as always, has been an overall very easy to use weapon. If you can control it right, it is a fantastic weapon to use for most engagements. It comes along with some great attachments that can help you in various different locations. For this, I normally run the monolithic suppressor, the Corvus Custom Marksman, the Commando foregrip, the 60-round magazine, and the stippled grip tape. This is one of those ones that I don't mind the iron sights, especially depending on the variant you end up picking, so I don't necessarily need the VLK 3x optic, but it can still help. Another weapon that is still in the meta but has drastically shifted since its main prominence within Season 5 is that of the Bruin. It's still a fantastic choice, but is it the main weapon you may see absolutely everybody running? I'd wager to say not necessarily. It's of course still incredibly early on within the season, so a lot of players may be playing around with, again, the SPR 208 or the wall banging potential of the AS Val and other weapons that have recently been sort of seen as the meta. So the Bruin definitely has room for a comeback, but right now I don't see it as much in my matches. But for this, it's still a fantastic choice. I run the monolithic suppressor, the Horizon 23-inch barrel, the tac laser, the VLK 3x optic, and the 60-round magazine. Now the final two weapons we'll talk about here are very situational, but as of recent adjustments have become incredibly annoying, but also partially the meta. One, of course, being the R90 incendiary rounds. This is, of course, one that will do damage to you and can two-shot up close and personal, but also will do damage over time and at a distance with the fire rounds, doing a little bit more of that extra burn. So it's insanely useful in terms of close quarters gunplay, and it's something that I hate running up against. It's the new Origin, if you ask me. Thankfully, it's not ground loot within Season 6. That would be the only thing that would make it even worse, but it is still something that you'll see quite a bit, more than likely. The final thing that I want to talk about is one that is more than likely going to be kicked out here once this gets adjusted, because I cannot see this lasting like this, is the 725 with slug rounds. Again, very situational, need that attachment, and it is something that is a powerhouse when used properly with that, but it can absolutely one-shot people to the head after its adjustment to the slug rounds in all of Warzone, and the damage potential for that, even at a distance, is kind of wild. But that one I'm not entirely sure if we'll see stay within the top 10, but for right now, those are the weapons that I'm thinking are the top 10 weapons within Warzone. So that's where we're going to wrap it up. I would love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of this here? Agree, disagree with any of these listings? How many of the 10 would you say are properly placed within that top 10? Even though we didn't really talk about any specific order of 1 to 10. Love to get your thoughts down below, but hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing. We're getting all things Modern Warfare, Warzone, and of course, Black Ops Cold War. The beta is coming up as of next weekend, so make sure you stick it here on the channel for the best of content and coverage on all that. But that said, if you also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get content outside of YouTube. I live on both those, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. But that said, thanks so much for watching. Mine is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.